What an unthinkable distance you must have come. Do let me welcome you to our small island, Mr. Cho.
So welcome back everyone to yet another one of my Outlander videos and my review of episode 12 of season 3. I know, we are one episode away from the finale. It is kind of painful when you think about it, but it is what it is. But on the subject of starting things, I don't really know where to start my review of this episode. Should I talk about Ian and his unfortunate journey? Or should I speak about one of my favorite characters, Geillis Duncan? Oh yeah, she's been one of my favorite characters since the very first season. Maybe I should speak of the Campbells, or maybe I should just talk about us meeting John Grey once again. But anyway, and in all cases, I've already told you in last week's review, this week's episode is gonna be the bringer of old faces. Faces that we've not seen in a long while, ranging from a few episodes to an entire season. And that it definitely was. But let's get down to business and start discussing all those bits and pieces inherent in the events of this episode. Number 1. So we basically get started off with Ian on the pirate ship. Not too long after though, he gets to meet with the woman known as the Bakra, aka our good old friend, Geillis Duncan. Alright, so they did not really do the overweight version from the novel. That is pretty much Lord Verbeek in the Flash. So there's your very first deviation on this episode away from the novel. However though, let's stay away from the novel for a moment here. If for anything, then because I cannot remember whether or not that goat's blood scene is out of the books or not. And yes, I do have a hard copy of the novel, and yes, I could go and check it out, but no, I'm too lazy to get out of my seat and go check it out. Okay, so we're agreed here. Regardless of the novel, this woman is batshit crazy, and she just keeps getting crazier. Now, I don't think they made her look much older there, and if I remember correctly, they were supposed to. But it does seem pretty clear that she's jumped like 10 more levels of insanity. Like if insanity was a video game, she would be the endgame boss. Poor Ian though, the sight of Geillis got him all worked up right there. And Geillis is also clearly after the treasure, and it makes perfect sense she would know about it, because after all, she had a thing going on with Dougal. Hell, she had a kid with him. But while still on the subject of the reintroduction of Geillis, number 2, Geillis is still into witchcraft. Not much has really changed about her favorite hobbies there. And part of her witchcrafting on this episode had a lot with Ian telling her the truth. And the poor kid right there seems quite torn between hating to tell the truth that Geillis is forcing out of him, no thanks to the truth serum she gave him, and between wanting Geillis. But something of utmost importance here, because it speaks to the casting for season 3, is the fact that he delivers all the way throughout that scene. He gives us angry, worried, afraid, and totally lacking on control of his desires and wishes. Number 3 though. Welcome to Jamaica. Landing there, Claire almost had it in her to say the wrong thing looking at all these kids in slavery. Now that scene was rather extremely disturbing, but nonetheless, it took me back to my review of the earlier episodes and how I kind of wished they would have addressed Claire and Joe's battles against sexism and racism with more detail. Now it is true, such exploration was not really needed to explain her disgust right there. Any sane person would be quite disgusted by that scene. But nonetheless, addressing it on earlier episodes rather than looking at Joe as irrelevant, quoting some of the comments I got there, now that would have pretty much strengthened this scene much further. Just join me in thinking about it for a moment here. We see Claire fighting side by side with Joe against all that racism and sexism, achieving what they achieved in the end. Then we see Claire watching everything backwards, as regressed as it could be. Just imagine that moment that she exploded in anger on this episode over the slave trader's actions. Imagine that having been even more fueled for the audience by us getting to see all the shit Joe had to go through. I know it does sound like I'm gloating, which I kind of am, especially after all the comments I got back then, but it does feel good to be right. Number 4 though. Jamie buys Claire a slave, or at least that is what it looked like on the outside. The truth is, Jamie just helped Claire save someone who was about to be sold into and tormented by slavery. I really liked how Jamie understands where Claire is coming from. Not the place, not the time, but the principles and the concepts. I did as well love the "we want to free you" scene. That was really very touching, very well acted on everyone's end. There was just an array of emotions that were clearly visible on the faces of all 3 of them right there. Claire, Jamie, and Temrare. Jamie's plan to use Temeraire, though, in order to find out more about whatever happened to Ian, was a good idea. And while he might have sounded like some sort of an opportunist right there, he was truly trying to make sure everyone is okay. He wants to free Temeraire, and he wants to make sure Ian is alright and Claire is happy. Number 5 though. The Campbells are back, this time though they are on Geillis' side. But there is a more important take on that scene, cause Geillis does tell us in a way that she's still in love with Dougal. She speaks of his greatness and how he died in battle, even though we all know that last part wasn't really true. But the world of the Campbells anyway was soon to collide with the world of Claire and Jamie as they meet at the Governor's Mansion. Now on the subject of the Governor's Mansion though, number 6, I really couldn't stop myself from the laughter when that girl started drooling over Willoughby. Like seriously, rolling on the floor laughing. Claire looking extremely disturbed with that scene was extremely hilarious as well, it just added to the laughter. The entire sequence basically was a laugh riot. Honestly though, Willoughby is pretty much the star of the season. The casting of the actor, the effort he puts into the character, the kindness we see in him all the way, including that with Margaret Campbell, all of that is just great. Number 7 though. You see, here's the thing about them not doing all the tears and the obvious cliche crap from every TV series and movie, with all due respect of course, to the book and how it was written. The relationship between Claire and Jamie is about this continuous longing for one another, even at those moments when they're so close, and even at that very moment when they kept looking at one another at the Governor's Mansion. But on the subject of romance on the series, I love how they are putting enough focus on Fergus and Marsali, even though a bit more wouldn't do any harm. They are basically a second Claire and Jamie. But back to those looks of longing that I was just talking about, and number 8. Soon those looks are gone and done with, the very moment yet another character we haven't seen in a while comes into focus, Lord John Grey. And it is basically as awkward as it is in the novel with Grey's looks to Jamie. Number 9 though. The chat between John Grey and Claire was pretty entertaining. Speaking of old memories, the first time they met, when he thought, and I quote, her virtue was in jeopardy. There was then his description of Jamie's love for her, following her questions about the sapphire and the circumstances during which Jamie gave it to him. But that conversation was interrupted by number 9, Claire's turn to see a ghost from the past, and just like Jamie reunited with John Grey, Claire reunited with Geillis. And with that reunion, we got to know how Geillis survived being burned to death after her witch trial back in Scotland. Now we already knew that Geillis was allowed to live until her baby was born. I was actually kind of amazed by Claire's surprise there, because she knows that Roger is Geillis and Dougal's descendant, and because as well, Colin Mackenzie did tell her that they allowed her to live until she gave birth to her baby. But the additional part of the story, the part we did not know about, was that Dougal helped her escape, having someone else dragged to the pyre. And apparently, the insane woman that is Geillis attended her own execution and seemingly enjoyed it. But Geillis has definitely changed since we watched her on season 1. I mean, the first time around she was weird and crazy, but at least she gave a shit about Claire and was kind of a good friend. This time around though, she's weird, crazy, more of a liar than she's ever been, and she doesn't seem to give a damn about Claire. But anyway, that act she puts up there when she hears of Ian's abduction was just sick. Very well acted. Also, those crazy eyes of hers, her looks, that is something she puts on specifically for this role. That is just good acting talent. I've already seen her in other roles, and she does sound and act differently. Number 10 though. You can clearly tell that Claire and Jamie feel the weirdness to Geillis, have this feeling she is up to something, but they just don't seem to put their finger on it right then and there. It doesn't take them long though to realize she's behind the abduction of Ian because, number 11, Temeraire brings them news of Ian, tells them that the woman Ian was taken to is one Mrs. Abernathy. But he also finds a place where he could go once Claire and Jamie would free him, right there in Jamaica. And they do keep their deal with him in a culmination of a short-lived but a touching arc. But anyway, while finding Ian is on top of Jamie's list of priorities, that had to wait because, number 12, Captain Leonard is back and he's at the Governor's Mansion right where everyone is. And while Jamie manages to make his escape from the place, Leonard catches on and captures him. Now Leonard, who might have seemed like a desperate man the first time we met him, is nothing but just another ungrateful ass. But anyway, this episode has seen a lot of deviations from the novel. Let's start with the simpler one. The wound Claire had on last week's episode, you know, the one she got running through the jungle, or whatever you want to call it, on Hispaniola. Know that one, you know, with the penicillin and the drunkenness, and if I remember correctly, the turtle soup. That should have happened on board of the Artemis after a pirate attack. Now don't really remember this whole bit with Leonard actually capturing Jamie in Jamaica. Again, very lazy, not getting the book. Correct me if I'm wrong though, but this never happened in Voyager. The arc with the Campbells as well. That's a bit different there. The man is actually killed by Willoughby at some point. Correct me if I'm wrong as well. But next week anyway, we're gonna be seeing more of Geillis, and the couple is gonna make it to the Cave of Abernathy. There will as well be some sort of appearance made by someone we haven't seen since right before the reunion. And of course, if this ends with the ending of Voyager, the closer of this chapter is gonna be something new and a starter to the next chapter. But of course, with that being said, my work here is done and I have nothing more to say on this episode. So let me know in the comments what you thought of this episode and if I missed any deviations from Voyager, the novel. Let me know as well if you liked this video by dropping it one hell of a much appreciated like. And if that were to be the case, do remember that subscribing and enabling notifications is much appreciated as well. And until I see you next time, thank you all for watching and have a good one.